My story begins as an 8-year-old. I was a young man with big dreams. I remember publicly speaking in front of my classroom, declaring, one day I will be a national athlete. I will represent my country. Little did I know the possibility of these dreams will come true only 10 years later. I was 18 years old and I put the South African jersey over my shoulders. In that season, I won some of the biggest races a junior can win. And now I'm competing at the Junior World Championships. This was my dream unfolding right in front of my eyes. I was competing with the best of the world. I'd raced two disciplines, the scratch race and the omnium.
The scratch race is a classic first across the line mass start race. Endurance riders often surge in an attempt to unsettle all the sprinters in the field. In turn, the sprinters will try to shelter with the pack for most of the race, conserving their energy until the final laps. The starter will indicate the leading rider by pointing as they pass on the home straight.
A significant moment in the scratch race. The first to cross the line wins. I had my chance in the qualifier round in the fastest heat, over 52 kilometers an hour average. I managed to lap the bunch. Going into the finals, I was one of the favorites to win the race.
We didn't televise for you, but they were part of this morning's racing programme here at the World Cycling Centre. I can tell you it was full-on action in both of them, right from the gun. And in fact, in both qualification heats, that gave us 10 riders from each to make up this 20-man final. But we saw 5 riders gain a lap during the course of the race to seal the victory. And a furious pace in both of the average speed for the first qualifier was 52.74 kilometres per hour. Of course, the riders who came out on top from those two are now here lining up for this men's scratch race final. 50 laps of the track is the distance of the race. So representing South Africa, Ricardo Broxham, here at the World Cycling Centre, the first back in 2016. So away we go, the first rolling lap. Riders, assuming they're all still together, will get the gun this time, and the race will be underway. No points or anything involved in the scratch race, as you saw from our explanatory video. It is the first 3 riders across the line at the finish who will be the medal winners, unless, of course, there are riders involved. As I mentioned, in both qualifiers, we saw 5 riders gaining a lap in both the qualification heats. Broxham of South Africa, Karatovis of Greece, Weiberger of Austria, Calvert of Great Britain, and Dimyakaitov of Kazakhstan, Ark of Korea, Kellerman of the Czech Republic, Estrada of Mexico, and Thibaut of France, who gained the lap advantage. So will we see lap gains here? That happens, of course, when an attacking group of riders go off the front of the race and join up to the rear of the main field. Danger represented by that group. Oh, and a sizable crash here. That's followed by Charlie Calvin of Great Britain as well. And the Mexican rider also down here.
The chaos unfolds. Someone just crashed in the middle of the race. A brutal reminder of the dangers we face on the track. But right after the crash, I seized the moment to potentially medal on the world stage.
Meanwhile, the race continues, and we have a rider who is clear at the head of the race. Meanwhile, both riders involved in the crash. We'll return to the action now.
The French rider just caught up with me, and together we broke away from the bunch. At this point, we're guaranteed podium spots, but the bunch wasn't going to let us off that easy. They fought hard to reel us back in. Even looking at this footage years later still excites me. Seeing how close we were to lapping the entire bunch. We were so close, but trying to lap the bunch, it's brutal. Every second counts, and as much as we pushed, we just couldn't make it happen. That's the intensity of a world championship race. It's not just about making the break, it's about surviving the brutal effort to maintain it.
Meanwhile, though, our two leading riders have come together. South Africa and France are the head of the race. They're almost in the same straight as the back of the main field. So these two could be the first two to look at a lap gain here. They did it, both of them, in their respective qualification heats. Broxham of South Africa and Thibaut of France. French rider in the dark blue colours, Broxham of South Africa in the green and yellow. They are the leading two riders just coming out of the finishing straight and into the back straight. Meanwhile, the main field headed by the rider there on the front for Archer's group, although the French rider and the South African are getting ever closer to joining the rear of that main field. 29 laps to go as those two riders are now achieving distance to the back of the main field, which is strung out now. The pressure still being applied by the rider from...
I just missed out on a medal. The Korean rider outsmarted the lot of us. He took the victory that day. The French rider and myself, we just missed out. I had another opportunity in the omnium.
The Omnium is made up of 4 events and is contested over 1 day. The 4 events that make up the Omnium are Scratch Race, Tempo Race, the Elimination Race, a Points Race. The final standings are established by adding up the finishing places in each of the first 3 events and converting them using a point scale into points. Going into the final event, the Points Race, each point won during this event is then added to the previous total of points. The rider with the most points at the end of the Points Race is the winner.
Once again, winning 2 races out of 4 in the omnium, I had a promising race.
I can tell you that during the course of the tempo race, was made very early in the action, and it gave the rider the victory without further need to score points. Because 20 points in a race only 38 laps in distance. It's a key point. There is the man who achieved that feat. It is the rider from South Africa, Ricardo Broxham. Caught the main field napping. You can see him just about to make the lap gain here, still with 34 laps to go. So here comes Bloxham from South Africa, latching onto the back, and with that picking up 20 points, moved him in the standings up to 7th place overall in a relatively poor scratch race, finishing only in 15th place. But that win in the tempo race has moved up into 7th spot overall. And as you saw,
I was in medal contention in my final race, pushing hard and staying in the mix. Everything was on the line and I could feel the energy building. But sadly, just when things were looking promising, a crash took me out of the race. It's tough, but that's the reality of racing. Anything can happen in a split second.
Front, they need to keep that position for another 2 laps. Oh, and a crash there brings down Broxham of South Africa.
I knew that what I was pursuing was a great possibility. Soon after these championships, I signed a contract. This was my guarantee into Europe, racing for the high performance team. One of my roommates included Biniam Gramay, who just won the green jersey at the Tour de France. This was some of the talent that wasn't only competing against me, but that was my teammates. I was only scratching the surface of what this career could do for me. I felt like my dreams were just beginning. Little did I know, my greatest challenge wasn't on the track. It was about to come from a place I never expected. I will never forget the moment I signed that contract. Years of working hard for all of my dreams, it pretty much opened the front door for me to step into that part of my destiny. I felt like I was on top of the world, even after competing at the Junior World Championships. It was my second time only competing on a wooden track. My experience was little, yet I've accomplished much. Therefore, I knew that the world is paved ahead of me. I was filled with enthusiasm for my future, and I said to myself, even in the height of my season, I will get a medal at a World Championships one day. My dream is to be world champion. I was raised in a small town. My dream was to get out of that town and even out of my country. Moving to Europe was one of my dreams, but it was also a stepping stone into a pro career of cycling. I remember just after I signed my contract, I was sent home to sort out paperwork through our embassy in South Africa. I was home about 2 days. I remember getting a phone call. At that stage, I was in contact with the UCI World Cycling Center. I knew I was expecting emails and phone calls from them. This phone call didn't come as a surprise, but I was soon to realize this was every athlete's worst nightmare. The man on the telephone told me that he sent me an email and it's very urgent. He mentioned that I was tested positive for an illegal substance.
Ricardo, you were banned from cycling for a while. Let's talk about that.
Cycling South Africa reports that Ricardo Broxham has been sanctioned for an anti-doping rule violation. I thought to myself, is this a dream? I remember sitting on my bed pinching myself, thinking I might be asleep. I am banned from an illegal substance called heptaminol. I've never even heard of this up to that date. After weeks of communicating with the UCI and the World Anti-Doping Agency, knowing in the depth of my heart that I'm innocent, I requested a B sample. I couldn't believe that this is the state of my life. The results were that I was banned for 1 year from cycling. The rules are, if it's intentional, it's a 4-year ban. Unintentional, it's a 2-year ban. I was able to prove myself innocent, but still, I was banned from the sport for 1 year. The emotional toll after it hit the media was horrible. People were accusing me of being a fraud, a cheat,
doper, disgrace, silly fool, please don't come back, idiot, stupid. The harshest words seemed to echo the loudest. At that time, I felt like my entire identity had been reduced to those accusations. It wasn't just my career that had stopped, it felt like my life had hit a wall.
Newspapers that celebrated me 5 to 6 weeks ago now criticized me of being a scandal, of being a doper. In the depth of my heart, I knew this wasn't who I am. I knew I was innocent. But still, people love to tell a story and add tales to that story. I take full responsibility for having had that in my urine. Up to today, I am not 100% sure how I even consumed that substance. The truth is, I was tested positive, but also the truth is, I am innocent. I didn't use substance. But the media were scandaling me. They were accusing me. Initially, when I got the news of me being banned, knowing how long it took me to achieve my dreams, I thought to myself, if this is what life wants to hand over to me, then I don't want life anymore. I wanted to end my life because the news of this was so drastic. I didn't think by any means I will be able to overcome this. The shame and depression it came with was just too much to bear. But God had other plans. He didn't allow me to sit in this uncertainty. My mother was sent from God to send me to the youth church. I was forced to go there. I had an encounter with Jesus Christ. In the height of my cycling career, I had a private moment with God in my room, and He asked me, "Do you want to be my servant?" And I told Him, "No, I cannot be your servant, because if I have to be your servant, I need to love you as much as I love my sport, and I do not know if I'm able to make that sacrifice. And here, once again, I'm faced with him. And because of things that happened previously, I'm standing there so guilty and so condemned, thinking that he is angry at me, thinking that he allowed this to happen. As I walked into the presence of God, the one thing that I felt wasn't guilt, it wasn't shame, it wasn't condemnation, but it was love and peace that I couldn't understand. How can somebody embrace me and try to pursue me if I did exactly the opposite? I broke down in tears and I started weeping because of the goodness of God in a single moment. I walked into that building one person, but I left a different man because of the presence of God so overcame me in that moment. I was transformed. A couple of weeks later, I remember praying and I said, Father, I surrender my life to you. I surrender my dreams of ever becoming something great in the sporting world, because the presence of God outweighs every and anything that this world can offer you. The presence of God is what I wanted more than becoming a world champion, more than competing at the Olympics, more than putting on any national jersey over my shoulders. More than that, I wanted his presence because I have tasted winning one of the biggest junior races in the world. I just missed out on global medals, but that does not compare to his presence. And for a moment, I tasted the presence of God and I knew that this is what I want in life. I was able to sacrifice my career and my dreams, not because it was my idea, but because I had an encounter that was real with a one true living God. Cycling defined me, but it was replaced with something far greater, a relationship with Jesus Christ. My band situation could have taken my life, but God gave my life back to me. As I surrendered my life to Him, I started serving at our local ministry. Through choosing this new path, I had the opportunity to witness God work through me profoundly. Countless miracles and lives changed forever. Cancer tumors disappeared. Broken hips came back to being whole. Young children who were supposed to go for operations were miraculously healed. Many, many more. Children who were supposed to not live, lived literal lives being saved. The impact I once dreamt on making on TV as a sportsman was nothing compared to witness lives changed in front of my eyes by the love of God. In this season, I had the opportunity to my first ever outreach experience. To have this experience with both my brother and my father.
Many times I look at Pastor JJ, he's a leader of our church. He's a leader of this group of people over here. And still, he washes dishes. Sometimes even more than us. Every second he is ready to serve. And those are the kind of people we have to look up to. Serve before we leave. Also look at my dad. He's a farmer back in South Africa. And he has many people that works under him. But when the water pump breaks down, there's mud everywhere. He takes off his shoes and he walks into the mud. Sees his hands. He leads by example. Let us start imitating Christ today.
A year after I won the Junior Tour of Ireland, I was in Zambia seeing people in front of my eyes whose lives are being changed because of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I realized that I could have been in Europe right now, me, myself, and I, making my own dreams a possibility. Everything revolved around me, worshipping my sport. Instead, I was in Zambia, and it was just these two contrary seasons in my life. but God's hand was in it, and where He led me, I followed. This season of losing almost everything that I've worked so hard for, I found one thing that I never want to lose ever again. His name is Jesus Christ. Pain and sadness brought with it a large amount of joy and peace, because God takes what the enemy meant for evil and He turns that into good. This laid the foundation for the rest of my life. I never dreamt of ever returning to cycling again. I have surrendered that sport. I made a commitment that I am following God. He has called me and I will pursue where He leads me. Just after COVID-19 hit, God sent somebody to speak into my life, and I felt a strong urge to return to the sport of cycling. 2.5 years of not touching my bike, never even imagining to race ever again, I felt a strong urge from God to enter back into the world of cycling. This time, I would not do the sport for my own glory, but I knew that I was sent by God for His glory. I had many challenges as I entered into the first season of this sport. It is such a demanding sport, and I've lost 2.5 years of all the competitors. I personally had to go through a lot of things, even praying and asking God, are you sure you want to send me back into the sport? I remember the first tour I had, it was so tough on me that I told Him, I'm going to leave this sport right after this tour. I remember I had a dream that night. In this dream, God showed me somebody. I saw every single detail of him. 2 days later, I met exactly that same person. What happened in the dream, word for word, became true 2 days later. I knew this was God's voice urging me to remain in the sport until He closes the door. The Word of God allowed me to perform over and above my physical ability. Even in the midst of this tour, I was lost for the first 3 days, but I managed to podium in one of the final days of this tour. I knew this time I wasn't chasing medals. I had a new mission. Jesus was the one who deserved all the glory. This season wasn't just about cycling. It was about showing the world what restoration looks like in the hands of a loving God. He didn't just give me back my sport for a season. He gave me a platform to glorify Him. My first year of returning to this sport, after a lot of ups and downs, I managed to win a KOM at a famous race in South Africa, the 94.7.
On my way home after the 94.7, was a good day on the bike. But before I start, I just want to say what an honor it is to be serving Jesus with my talents that He gave me, freely given to us, and that's why we freely just give it back. I was in the early move. It happened about 15 k's into the race, and I actually had a chance to go for the KOM. So yeah, it was amazing sprinting the climbers for a KOM. That doesn't happen every day.
Closing off this season, I won my and my team's first ever elite race, a tour in South Africa.
I'm gonna park the car.
Ricardo, what? What an absolute legend, boy!
After everything I've been through, the struggles, the setbacks, the moments I thought it was all over, this moment means so much to me. You can see it in the emotion, the joy, the relief. It's not just my victory, this is our victory.
Good job, boy.
Yeah, it was super emotional, super exciting. Just all over it was amazing. But yeah, all glory to God for this.
Podiuming on one of the oldest races in the world in Cape Town, Paarl Boxing Day. Racing along some old friends and Tour de France competitors. Starting my new season 2022, winning international races in Namibia. Stage 1. Stage 2 and
Gato! Two!
There it goes. There it goes. Oh, get there.
Gato! Oh, yeah!
and stage 4. I managed to secure a silver medal at nationals on the track. And one of my last races before the cycling door was closed, I managed to win with an off chain and nearly crashing just before the finish line. I am so grateful for the second chance God gave me, not just in cycling, but in life. My story is proof, no matter how far you have fallen, God's grace can restore you and give you a purpose far greater than you can ever imagine.
This time around, I didn't just win races. I used this platform to inspire the next generation, sharing my testimony and the good news of Jesus Christ with it. This was my highest priority. I used every single opportunity to share my testimony because Jesus forever saved my life. Therefore, I am not ashamed of the gospel because it's the power of God unto salvation.